Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Hexes and Hot Flashes by Lisa Manifold, narrated by Eva Wilhelm. Chapter 1. I rubbed the bridge of my nose, trying to wish away the headache that was steadily growing. I could feel it. It had been there all day. I knew what was causing it. I'd slept badly, tossing and turning, throwing the blankets off, and then pulling them on as I went through hot flash after hot flash last night. Not to mention, it was my birthday. Today, I was 45. Too young for hot flashes, but my body didn't seem to care. I'd already heard from the kids. Theo, Rachel, and Chris had all called me, with varying takes on what I needed to be doing. Later today, I'd be at a spa, being pampered within an inch of my life. It was perfect. Except for one thing. My husband wasn't here. Tears filled my eyes for the 100th time in less than 12 hours. Derek wasn't here, and he would never be here again. He'd died almost 6 months ago while testing a new chopper. Derek, owned a helicopter tour company that operated in the Grand Canyon. He was gone half the year usually, sometimes more. I hadn't liked it, but I lived on Martha's Vineyard in my parents' old house, and I didn't want to move to Arizona for 6 months of the year. Mom had given it to us after we got married. She was worried since I dropped out of college to marry Derek and I was only 20. I loved the town of Oak Bluffs, somewhat secluded out on Martha's Vineyard. The schools were great, and at the time I had a lot of family around. That had come in handy while I was raising the kids. Now it was just me. My parents were gone. My aunts were all gone. My childhood friends had moved away. And now my husband was gone. He was never coming back. I was alone. I dashed at the tears as the doorbell rang. "Coming!" I croaked, and I hurried to the foyer. A delivery man stood behind a large display of flowers, roses of all the cream and pink and peach shades. My favorites. "Winter Chastain?" the man asked. "That's me," I replied. "Happy birthday," he said, handing over the huge vase. Then he bounded down the stairs and was gone. I closed the door carefully, not wanting to drop this huge thing. The kids must have sent this. I maneuvered it to the kitchen, seeing why the delivery man was so pleased to be rid of it. It was heavy as hell. While searching among the blooms, I found myself surrounded by the wonderful, heady scent of the roses. Finally, I found the card and sat down at the island. My name and address were on the front. Once I got it out of the envelope, I stared at the little card in my hand, my mouth falling open. It was Derek's handwriting. "Happy birthday, babe. Here's to another great one. Let's have dinner tonight and dance in the moonlight. Love from the luckiest guy on the planet, Derek." I put my head down on the island and sobbed. I might have slept there, clutching that stupid card in my hand, but the phone rang. Even though I ignored it, the person on the other end kept calling. "Fine," I groaned, and I slid off the bar stool to pick up the phone. It was old-fashioned, but Derek always insisted on a home phone, not trusting cell service when he was out in a place with less than reliable phone service. "Hello," I said. "Winter, thank God. I've been trying to reach you. Are you all right?" It was Cody Larson, one of Derek's friends from college. He was also our insurance agent. Last week, I'd sent him an email about needing to discuss the policy that Derek had taken out 10 years ago after a scare at work. He'd upped the payout, telling me that he wanted to make sure the kids and I were taken care of. I'd gotten the death certificate from the state, and I'd contacted Cody to see what the next steps were on his end. "I'm fine, Cody, thank you. I'm sorry I didn't answer before," I said. "I got your email, and I've been working on the paperwork, but I've hit—" Cody's voice faltered. "I've hit a bit of a snag. Can I come by and see you?" "Oh, well, I was planning on—" I didn't get to finish. Last week, knowing it was my first birthday alone, Shelley, my best friend, older than me by 10 years and my friend for over 20, booked us an appointment for a massage, a facial, and a pedicure. I'd balked, but she told me that I should agree since I wasn't being given a choice. I'd agreed immediately. I rarely won when I went up against Shelley. "This can't wait, Winter," Cody said. Something in his voice struck a note of panic in me. It was brief, flaring like a flash of sunlight that blinded when you were in the car on a busy highway, but it was there. "Sure," I said. "Come on over." "Thanks, Winter. I'm leaving the office now." He hung up. I stood for a moment, looking at the handset. Something wasn't right. Rather than dwell on what it might be, I went and washed my face and tidied my hair so I didn't look like I'd been collapsed on my kitchen island, crying my eyes out. Then I started a pot of coffee and got the coffee things ready. When Cody rang the doorbell, I was calm, ready for whatever step that would need to be managed. Nothing had been easy since Derek died. Everything took longer, took more effort. I sighed. No reason why this should be any different. "How are you?" Cody said as he came in, his hands brushing against his pants. "I'm as good as I can be," I said. I wasn't going to tell him about my birthday or the flowers from Derek. "Thanks for coming over." "I wanted to talk to you in person," Cody said. He noticed the flowers as we walked into the kitchen. "Wow, those are beautiful." "Thank you. Derek had them sent. It's my birthday today." I tried to keep my tone matter-of-fact. "What?" Cody said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Today is your birthday?" I nodded. He didn't say anything but stared at the flowers as though they were condemning him to execution. "Well, have a seat if you'd like," I said, wanting to move past his obvious shock and discomfort. This didn't bode well, but I might as well take the bull by the horns. "Would you like some coffee?" "Sure," he said, his shoulders hunching up. Yeah, that would be great." He sat down quickly at one of the chairs in front of the kitchen island. I got cups from the cupboard and put together the coffee. Strangely, Cody didn't try and make small talk. Although it wasn't that strange. No one knew what to say to me anymore. I saw it with everyone, even with people who'd known me for years. They just didn't know how to talk to the widow. It had been difficult at first, but I was used to it now. I didn't bother to try and fill the silence. That made things even worse. I handed over a cup of coffee to Cody and gave him a spoon. I leaned against the counter, sipping from my own cup, and waited. Well... Cody cleared his throat and set the cup down with a firmer-than-normal hand after taking a large drink. "I know you set up the policy with a large payout to make sure you were covered in case anything happened." "Exactly," I said. "Do you need a copy of the death certificate?" "No." His first two fingers tapped on the island counter. "We have ample proof of Derek's death." He looked down, refusing to meet my eyes. I felt my face crinkle into a frown of concern. Something was off. Wrong. Maybe even really wrong. "Cody, what is it?" He finally looked up as he sighed deeply. "I know that you and Derek took out a big policy for not only you and the kids, but the business concerns and anything else that might come up as well, and we're ready to pay out the policy. There's just one more thing we need." "What's that?" I asked. "The beneficiaries have to sign off on the split." I blinked, not sure I'd heard him correctly. Then I took a breath. "I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?" "What do you mean, beneficiaries? I'm the only beneficiary on the policy." Cody's shoulders hunched again, making him look older than he was. "No, you're not." "What?" I wasn't sure I heard him right. "A little over a year ago, when Chris finished college, he came in to change the beneficiaries." "To whom? The kids?" I shrugged. "That's all right, then." Chris was the youngest, and getting them through school had been a chief concern. With 3 kids born one right after another, the last couple of years had been tough. "No," Cody said. "Not your kids." Something in the way he said "your kids" made me look harder at him. "Okay, Cody, you're not making sense, and frankly, you're scaring me, so just tell me whatever it is and we'll sign and be done with it." "You have to sign off on the split of the payout," Cody said. "With who?" A nasty feeling wormed its way into my gut. "With Natalie Chastain," Cody replied. "His other wife." He looked away, the coward. My mind whirled as my stomach somersaulted. I knew that Cody was saying something, but I couldn't hear him over the roar in my head. His other wife? What in the utter hell? We'd been married for 25 years. I was Mrs. Derek Chastain. There was no other Mrs. Chastain. Period. The roar grew, and I turned away from where Cody sat at the island, putting my hands over my face. I stumbled, catching myself against the stove, and stood there, letting the roaring race through my head. His other wife. His other wife. When the roaring subsided, I turned to face Cody again. His other wife? He nodded, and I couldn't miss the relief on his face that I was still standing and sounding reasonable. "Yes, her name is—" "I know her name," I said sharply. "You said it before." "She and the kids—" "The kids?" I asked. "My kids are the kids, no one else." "Winter, regardless of the status of the marriage, he split the policy between you and Natalie because her kids are still little. Your kids are grown." "What is the split?" I asked. 20% to you, the rest to her." "What?" I whispered. We'd taken out this policy, paying a hefty sum for it, so that I'd have an ample amount in retirement, and we'd be able to help the kids as they moved into adulthood. They didn't have much in student loans, but they were all still renting homes. None of them were ready to buy a home yet. I'd been clear with Derek that I wanted to help them when they were. We'd talked about it, planned for it, and paid through the nose for this damn policy. And now he wanted our work, our planning, our bearing the cost, with 3 kids in college at the same time, I might add, to go to someone else? "No," I said. "That was paid for out of our funds, and it was designed for this family, not Natalie whoever." "Derek changed the policy himself," Cody said quietly. "I'm sorry, Winter. He was very clear. You have to sign off on it, or you won't be able to collect anything." "What?" I whispered again. "I don't have a choice?" "I'm sorry. No." Cody reached down into his backpack and pulled out a folder. He shuffled some papers and then pushed one across the island to me. "You just need to sign here." I pulled the paper to me slowly, not wanting to read it. It would make things real. When I'd gotten the death certificate, I'd put it in the junk drawer for 4 days, unable to look at it right away. Because once I did, it would be real. Derek would be gone. The same was true now. Once I read this piece of paper, whatever it was, there would be no going back. Natalie, her kids, all of it. It would be real. I looked down, trying to take my time, to focus. This was important, even if my heart felt like it was being split in 2 while it was wrenched from within me. I had to protect myself, even as all I wanted to do was rage and cry and run over Derek with my car for putting me in this situation. The document was simple. It listed Winter and Natalie Chastain as the beneficiaries of Derek Chastain's life insurance. It showed the origination date, and then, just as Cody said, it showed that Derek had changed it last year, along with the percentages he wanted to go to each of us. No reason why. No notations. Then, down at the bottom, it had a place for both of the beneficiaries to sign. My eyes widened as I saw a neat, looping signature below where I was supposed to sign. Natalie Chastain. His other wife. She's already signed this? She sent in the death certificate before you did, Cody said, having the grace to look abashed. I'm sure, I said. If I were getting 80% of something I didn't pay for, I would as well. This damn policy had been a sacrifice, even with the success of the business. And now someone else would benefit from my sacrifice. It burned. A lot. A raging hot fire that sat down deep within me. Winter, he began. I held up a hand. There's no choice in this? None. Don't say you're sorry again, please. I need a pen. I held out my hand. I was pleased that my voice didn't tremble, that my words were steady even as I was shaking with anger. Cody produced one with what seemed like great haste. I scrawled my name and then shoved pen and paper back toward Cody. He took them, putting them back in his backpack and getting up in one motion. It was clear this wasn't a conversation he'd wanted to have. That made two of us. Does she know about me? I asked. I would assume so. She had to sign this, he said, dodging the question. Did you know? I asked. Cody stopped then and looked at me, just a quick side glance, but his face was wreathed in shame. Cody Larson, you knew about this and you never told me? Warned me? I asked, hearing my voice raise. This was confidential, he began. Derek was my client. Your buddy, who you covered for, I said, clutching my coffee cup in one hand, coming around the island toward him. You knew, and you did this to us, to me and the kids. No, it wasn't like that, he said, moving quickly out of the kitchen and toward the hall. I followed, my hand gripping the cup so tightly that it made my arm hurt. Get out. If there's any other business you need to conduct with this family, you send someone else. I never want to see you again, I said. Come on, Winter, please. Get out, Cody, I said again, my voice hard and icy. My anger threatened to overwhelm me. I didn't want to hurt you, Cody said, his hands raised, palm out in front of him. That was it. I threw the coffee mug at him, at his lying, excuse-laden head, and he had to duck as it hit the doorframe behind him. Winter! Cody had the nerve to sound offended as he stood up, one hand covering the top of his head. Get out, I said, my voice even softer. He fled. The inner door shut behind him, and then I heard the outer door slam and his steps off the porch. I thought a lot of bad words directed at Derek, Cody, Natalie, all of them. I didn't know how long I stood there, clenching my fists and my teeth. Then I went back into the kitchen and called the spa to cancel my appointment. I left a message for Shelley and told her I'd call her in a couple of days. I was in no place to lie quietly on a table today, talk to anyone else, or do anything that required me to be polite. I stormed upstairs into our bedroom, walking into Derek's closet. We'd remodeled when the kids went to college to give ourselves each a walk-in. I hadn't been able to move his clothes, still wanting to pretend he was there, to walk into his closet and smell the fresh scent of him. He always smelled like warm sunshine and sandalwood soap. Now I stared at all his clothes. The clothes of a liar, of a cheater, of way more than a cheater. Liar! I screamed. Liar! I yanked at the hangers, tossing his clothing to the floor, stomping on them, pulling and tearing, not caring if I did any damage. When most of his clothing had been dumped into the growing pile, I glared at it. You're a liar, Derek Chastain! Then I closed the closet door. Later, next week maybe, I'd get someone to come in here, clean out the closet, and give myself a dressing room with a vanity, a jewelry station, or whatever the hell I wanted. Right now, I never wanted to see any of his things again. Even though it was the middle of the day, I slid off my shoes, took off my t-shirt and capris, and eased into bed, pulling the blankets up to my face. As I closed my eyes, the tears flowed. That lying bastard. He'd ruined everything. Chapter 2. A week later, during which Cody tried to call, my kids tried to call, Shelley tried to call, and I ignored them all, I finally got out of bed. I'd spent the last week sleeping and crying, getting up only to get water or go to the bathroom. I had no will for anything else. Bad enough that I'd lost my husband. I'd just lost him all over again. Worse, he'd made sure that it was as painful as possible. How could he have kept this from me? How could I have missed this? How had he hidden an entire family? These were all questions that needed to be answered, even as the thought of them made me exhausted. I'd fended off the kids even though Cody had called them, telling them that they needed to talk to me. He hadn't told them why I was so upset, the weasel. No, he'd left that to me. So I'd had to promise my kids that today they could come over and I'd tell them everything I knew. That meant I had to clean up, clean the house, and see what I could learn before they got here. They'd be here after lunch. Chris and Theo only lived an hour away, but Rachel was over 2 hours. So we'd made it just after lunchtime to make it easier for her to get here. I took myself to the shower and used up all the hot water before I got out. Not like anyone else was using it. I stalked past the closed door of Derek's closet. Calling a junk removal place was next, I reminded myself. I certainly wasn't going to clear out his stuff. Never again. Cleaning up from a week of neglect didn't take long, surprisingly. Since I hadn't left my room, there wasn't much to do. Although I did take the vase of flowers, now looking a bit wilted, and marched them to the trash cans out back. The lying hypocrite. It felt good to bang the lid down on the trash can so that I'd never have to see the bouquet again. After I was done, I cut up a salad, put together the fixings for sandwiches, and made iced tea for everyone. We'd agreed on after lunchtime, but I knew my kids. Someone would be hungry. Then I made myself a cup of my favorite hot tea, the Prince of Wales blend, and sat down at the kitchen table with my laptop. Time to find Natalie Chastain. It was easy. She was on social media. She lived in Phoenix, right there in Arizona, and she posted lots of pictures of herself, with her kids, and with Derek. Derek had pestered me for years to move out there, to be closer to him, and then all of a sudden, he'd stopped asking. This might be why. In fact, I was sure Natalie was the reason why. He didn't need me there. He had her, a whole other life. The tears streamed down my face unchecked as I scrolled through the pictures Natalie Chastain had posted. They looked happy. He didn't look like a two-timing liar who'd stolen security and a future from his wife and 3 oldest kids. Their kids were cute and fairly young. The oldest, a girl, couldn't have been more than 9 or 10. She and her brother both had dark blonde hair and their mother's eyes along with their father's chin. Natalie was cute, too. Where I was petite and blonde, she was taller, with dark hair and dark, laughing eyes. She looked like someone who always had a tan because she was always outside hiking or doing something outdoorsy. They were attractive. Like our family was attractive. I cried some more. She couldn't have known. Not to be posting things like this, like they were a happy family. She couldn't have known. The thought that she might have was as painful as what my husband had done. Thank God I'd already sold the business, I thought. It was mine and Derek's, and I had no interest in it after he was gone. I sold it to another tour operation that wanted to get into helicopter tours and didn't look back. But if I hadn't, would I have been dealing with fights over the business as well? Could I still be facing that? Is that why Derek had changed his policy? Because he knew I would get the business, that I'd be all right even though it would be tough, because our kids were nearly grown? That didn't excuse him, I thought angrily. It hadn't been what we agreed on. We hadn't agreed on him building another family either. I glanced at the pictures of the smiling family again. They were cute, but until I knew this woman couldn't hurt my kids or me, I couldn't afford to be sentimental. Derek had done this to me. To us. Getting up, I went to the sink and splashed water on my face. "No more tears," I said out loud. "No more tears for someone who did this to us. He's gotten more than enough tears over the past 6 months." Wiping my face, I turned around and went to the fridge. While I'd made lunch, basically, I thought it might be a long day, and that meant more food was necessary. I focused on my fridge and the pantry, glad to have something else to think about right now. The kids all came piling through the front door. "Mom!" I heard. "In here!" I called out. My middle child and only girl, Rachel, came in, followed by Chris and Theo, the oldest. He was 24, Rachel 23, and Chris 22. I hated to have to tell them what had happened, but at least they were grown. "All right, Mom," Rachel said. "What's going on?" I stifled a smile despite the reason they were here. Rachel had always been the spokesperson, keeping the peace between her brothers. "Well, I got some news about Dad, and even though I don't want to, I have to tell you." I looked at all three of them, still innocent, still trusting, and cursed Derek Chastain. "Your dad left some things behind that we have to talk about," I began, as I sent up a prayer to whatever deity might be listening that I didn't screw this up. This would change everything for my kids. Damn Derek Chastain straight to hell. The next afternoon, I closed the front door after waving goodbye to the kids, falling against it in exhaustion. The day that they'd spent with me had been the longest day of my life. Having to explain it all to the kids, having to admit I'd had no idea and show them the little I knew, exhausting didn't even begin to cover it. I'd cursed Derek more than once when the kids were here, although not out loud. The three of them had more than enough anger at what their father had done. They didn't need me adding to it. "How could you not have known, Mom?" Theo asked. "How did he manage to hide all this?" I shrugged, feeling small and foolish. "I don't know," I said as I wrapped my arms around myself. "I keep asking myself that, and I'll have to go back and look, because I don't know how he managed it." "It doesn't matter," Rachel said, her voice hard. "This isn't Mom's fault, Theo." She glared at her older brother. "I didn't say it was," Theo protested, "but he hid an entire family for what, years, and no one knew?" "There were some people in his circle who knew," I said, and I cringed at the bitter tone of my voice as I thought of Cody. "Who?" All three kids cried out at once. I told them about my meeting with Cody and what he'd said. Rachel and Chris both cussed him, his ancestry, and his future with great vehemence. Theo sat back on the couch with his arms crossed, glaring at the fireplace. "What does she look like?" Rachel asked abruptly. I didn't respond right away. "Come on, Mom, I know you've looked her up already," Rachel said impatiently. "How do you know that?" Chris asked. "I would," Theo said. "Wouldn't you?" Silently, I opened my laptop and showed them what I'd found. They scrolled through her social media quietly. Interestingly, when they saw the many pictures of Natalie's kids, their half-siblings, all three of them had become a lot less angry. They had the same reaction I did. The kids looked like their dad, and they were cute. These kids, for better or worse, were their family. I'd told them that I'd keep them updated as I learned anything, and I'd done my best to shove them out the door without shoving them out the door. I wanted to be alone. Now, thankfully, my house was quiet, and it was just me. I pushed off from the door and went to the kitchen, absently cleaning as I thought. My whole life had been my husband and my family. The pressures of raising a family with a spouse gone 6 months of the year and making sure the business stayed in the black, and then my parents aging meant that I didn't have a lot of time for myself or friends. Although that sounded sad when I thought about it, it wasn't. I liked being alone. Liked being on my own. My group of friends outside of Shell.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?